Hi, I'm Brett, and in this video, I'm going to show you what it's like to get out of the box and get started with your new CompactDAQ chassis. Now, this video is good for both the 8-slot version of the USB CompactDAQ chassis, but also the 4-slot. So it's the same setup, just one has 4 extra slots. Now, this is the 8-slot, and the 4-slot is in the box. So let's go ahead and flip over to the box and take everything out. All right, so I'm going to start with the accessory pack. We've got a couple of cables to pull those out. We've got the trusty NI screwdriver. It's a power supply, some safety, environmental, and regulatory information. And then if I pull up this platform, we can access the chassis. Now, I went ahead of time and I pulled all the anti-static wrap off. So you're seeing me pull out materials and accessories with no wrapping, but an actual box would have anti-static bags and the little Ziploc bags for the accessories. Okay, so I'm going to move the box out of the way, and let's take a closer look at what you've got. So the first thing I pulled out was 2 cables. This is a USB Type-C chassis, and so one of the cables is a USB Type-C for the device side, and then it's a USB Type-A for the laptop. So that's kind of the older one. And then there's also a cable that is C to C, so device side and laptop side. One other thing to point out, there's a thumb screw. There's a locking thumb screw, so you can secure the USB cable to the chassis. So I'll put that to the side. There's also a power supply. So let's take a closer look at that. One side of the power supply is the probably very familiar IEC connector style like you would have on a desktop computer or many other electronic equipment. And then this is the side that connects to the chassis. And it's a little 2-position connector that fits right in. Now, if we look at the chassis itself, let's take a closer look at this. You can see there is the USB-C connector. Above it is the threads for the locking screw. There's the power connector, so you see the V and the C. And you can even see the document right below it. So this chassis needs 9 to 30 volts and 15 watts. So that's handy right there, and I'll get to that in just a second. And then there's also a QR code. And so if you want to scan that, that should take you to the front page of the user manual for this particular chassis. And then, of course, we've got power and activity LEDs. All right, so that is the USB chassis. We've got all the accessories. Couple things to point out. Let's focus on the power for a second here. The supply, you notice this very familiar connector. What is not included with the kit is the cable that goes from the power supply to the wall, and that's regional specific. So I've got mine here that I was just able to grab from my desk, and it goes from, there's that connector, and then obviously into the wall here in the United States. So you will need to order one or grab one from your lab or your desk, and that'll get you the rest of the way. So I'm gonna just plug this into my power supply, and then that will be good to go. Now, before I plug in this power supply, I wanna call out another feature of the system here. So going back to this power supply, that is built to connect to this connector right here. And then I'm going to grab one more. Also not in the box, but you can order separately, is this little terminal plug. And it's got two terminals in it. And if I want to create my own custom cable, I can install this. And now I have access to 2 terminals for an external power supply. So if I want to, I've got one right here. If you want to hook up to an industrial power supply or something that, you've got your own wall wart and you want to trim the ends and just connect it to the chassis, you can do that as well. Anything that is 9 to 30 volts DC, you only need 30 watts of power. You can do that with that extra little accessory there. All right, so I'll pull that out. And I'm going to leave the chassis here so you can see as I connect this. I'm going to go ahead and connect power. There we go. And I'm going to screw that down. And it's important to screw down the power supply because if it gets pulled out a little bit and you lose power, your chassis is going to reset. And that's definitely annoying if you're trying to run a test. So I'm going to take this end and I'm going to go down here and plug in the power. There we go. All right, there's not really stairs. So now I've got power going, I got my lights on, that's a good sign. Now I need to connect it to my laptop. I have already installed the software for the chassis, and that is the DAQ driver. And if you are not sure how to install that, if you will Google how to install NI CompactDAQ, there's a YouTube video that will show you how to install DAQ. I'm going to pick the USB-C to C chassis or cable, and I'm going to take this end with the locking screw, and I'm going to connect it to the chassis and screw that down. And if you're wondering, does it make a difference if I use the C to C or the C to A cable? It does not. From a performance perspective, it should not make a difference. And now I'm going to plug this into my laptop here. But before I do that, remember, I've already installed the DAQ software, and what I'm expecting is to get a pop-up. So I'm going to plug this in, and there's my pop-up. So because the driver is already installed on my Windows machine here, it has detected my CompactDAQ chassis, and it's popped up saying, hey, what do you want to do? From here, I could launch LabVIEW and start developing an application. I could launch FlexLogger, FlexLogger Lite, which is actually included with the chassis, so that logging software comes with the chassis, and I could start acquiring data. Actually, in this situation, I'm just going to go ahead and open up our configuration utility called Max, and it's going to show the chassis in my system. And then I'm going to plug in a module. So you can see the chassis. It's model number 9173. And I'm going to grab a module, also not included, sold separately. So this module measures load cells or strain gauges. I'm going to click that into the chassis, and it pops up underneath. So you can see there's kind of a sub-bullet underneath the chassis in the Measurement Automation Explorer. I can see my 9237 chassis. I can start to test it, or again, I can flip over and go into FlexLogger and start making measurements. So you get this exact same experience is for the 4-slot or the 8-slot chassis. Both have the same setup experience and power supplies and software stack. And both USB cables come in the box. You will need that external power cable to get to your wall. But other than that, you are now ready to start building your own test and measurement system. And that's how you get out of the box and get started with the new USB CompactDAQ chassis.